All right, we're back and we're going to do some more Cypress testing. And we are finally going to start to generalize some of the way we fill out the form values because we need to add a third spec. So go into the apps, the end-to-end spec, we'll go to the source. All right, and we are going to add, the file naming is going to get probably pretty lengthy if I start to make somehow like make the file name represent the exact permutation. I'm probably going to, we have this whole list of, sorry, we have a spreadsheet of test scenarios, and there might be some value in like linking to that spreadsheet and then making the association with these spec files that way, like, you know, scenario 1.8 or whatever. In any case, we'll stick with this naming for now. So it's going to be a one member change residence.ts. Oh, and it's got to be, excuse me, .sci.ts. That's the specific pattern that Cypress looks for. So what we're going to do is we're going to grab this one member household. Ooh, and actually we should fix this because I bet the commit that I just pushed did not work. So by the way, in the last video we came across that circular dependency, and turns out, yeah, it actually was a circular dependency. And so what I did is I moved this form value as well as all of the form value types into a separate library called types, and that's nested under the SLCSP calculator folder. And so, you know, that just kind of allowed us to move those lowest level types, which really should not depend on much else, could, but not from anything higher up the dependency chain in the calculator library or application. So just allowed us to move that out. And now noticing that we had some issues here. Let's do this because I want to make sure that our commits are deploying. And this last one, yep, totally failed. So let me just make sure the one member household and the two member household with these fixes update path to form types. Okay. So we'll commit and push. And for now, what we're going to do is we're going to jump into this one member. Let's do this. So we've got the one member household over here. We're going to copy and paste. So now we have this new spec that is the one member change residence spec. And as you can probably guess, the thing that we're going for is where we have a change in residence. And that change of residence needs to have kind of a specific payload associated with it. And the bug that we were kind of identifying in the last video is related specifically to how the months are recorded in the form, and then how those months are sent to the back end. So again, there are a couple different places where we can intercept this and change it. But for now, what this video is going to be about is really just looking across our spec and deciding, okay, now this is the third spec. Wow, that we've got all of this duplicate code, and can't we just eliminate all of this duplicate code? Well, of course we can. But you know, as we go through this, and I've mentioned this in previous videos, as we go through this, it's really important to not prematurely abstract these things. It's really important to to have some duplicate code so that we can look across all of our examples and decide, yeah, actually these things are exactly the same. Let's just pull out those details, put them somewhere else. And oh, it looks like these things are very, very similar, but with subtle differences. How are we going to account for those? And so we can begin to, deduplicate this code and generalize some of these patterns. So let's get rid of the 2-member household. By the way, we're gonna kind of use these 1-member household specs as the way to compare and generalize, and to abstract some of our details out into other files. But then we'll go back in to that 2-person household and kind of reapply things over there. All right. So what I'm realizing we have another failing spec, and I really want to fix this now. So this should actually be enroll SLCSP calculator. Enroll SLCSP calculator and types. So I want to put that in, and then love this. Whenever you create a jest config, the wonderful folks at NX, I think they're doing a wonderful job, and they kind of anticipate ESLint complaining about the TS jest, the way that these property names are constructed because they're not camel case. But I have, so there's nothing wrong with that, but I have kind of like a more rigid rule set, which doesn't like this blanket ESLint disable. And so I keep forgetting whenever I create a library, I have to add this just more specific ESLint, disable this rule instead of using that blanket disable. And so with that, I'm just going to make sure that everything's formatted and stage both of those things. Fix linting errors, classic commit message, right? Fix things, fix errors. All right. So with that out of the way, let's pull back up our existing one household member spec, and we're just going to kind of look across these things, and let's just for a moment talk through. Let me bump up the font size. Let's just talk through the similarities that we see. And actually, these are just copied and pasted, so they're exactly the same. But let's say they were slightly different. And what are all the things that we'd want to generalize? Well, we've got some tests set up in both. We've got some kind of like initial navigation. And then we start to have these kind of page by page flows. So, some assertions, some, check this checkbox, enter in this name, enter in some details. So I would say, like, right off the bat, what I definitely want to do is start to let's come into the calculator. Let's go into the testing library. Remember, we've already set this up, and maybe we'll create a new folder and call it form entry. And let's add a barrel file so that as we start to generate our form entry commands or functions, that we can kind of export those. And then in our barrel file for the library itself, let's export everything from lib form entry. It's complaining about this right now because it knows that there's actually nothing exported from this file. That's okay. We'll come back there and we'll make sure that it's set up. So, just like when we did this earlier, we start creating files. We could have like one function per file, or we could kind of shove everything into this file. I always like to start from maybe the laziest solution. So let's just do form entry let's do one initial navigation. All right. I think the initial navigation is pretty obvious, but we're going to do let's see, sci.visit. So we're going to bring these over here, and the first thing that it sorry, whoops. Let's do export const initial navigation equals, and then we will add these steps in. So the first thing that you're going to notice is that this sci object is not defined. And what's interesting is that in the spec files, it's not imported anywhere. So what's happening? Well, this is, I dare say, a little bit of TypeScript magic. Not really TypeScript magic, because it's not like totally obscured from our ability to control, but essentially in the TS config, we pass it this, we have this property, the types property, specify type packages, type package names to be included without being referenced in a source file. I don't know if that's like a really horrible thing that TypeScript gave us, but essentially, if you add the Cypress types, if you add Cypress to this array, it will just know, oh, grab the Cypress type definition file and make sure that it's accessible here. So what we're going to do is we're going to kind of come down here and add it to the tsconfig.lib.json. So we'll put that in there, and then we're going to restart the TypeScript server. And did we benefit from that at all? Maybe not. Let's also restart the ESLint server. And basically what we want, is when we hover over sci, that it does recognize it as this variable where we can do all sorts of stuff on it. Okay, cool. So I think we're good with that. We want to come back into the Sparrow file, export everything from initial navigation, and then right up here, we can literally, check this out, we can scrap this whole thing, and we can say initial navigation, and we can import this from the testing library. And all of a sudden, let's just go into our specs, one member change resonance. Let's click this, and you can see, I mean, it already blew past that first step, but right away, we can see that it's working great. And so, we could, as we went along, go in and update each one of these to do the same thing. Maybe that's not a bad idea, just so we don't lose the thread of this block of code can be replaced with this layer of indirection. So maybe I just want to kind of paste that in, and it is a function that I have to actually call, so I need the parentheses. And over here, same thing. Let's put that in and import it. Sweet. All right, so now you can start to see, even though this was super simple, that we have abstracted these details away from the test. So the test no longer cares about what that initial navigation looks like. It only cares that it needs to happen before each spec is do some initial navigation. And now, of course, we know in the future, if we needed to change this, if we needed to change which page they go to, anything like that, we're editing it in one place, and it's applying everywhere that we need to do this initial navigation. Cool. All right. So next up is, and let's really focus on the Cypress commands, maybe not necessarily the way we bring in this stuff just yet. Of course, we know that functions can take arguments, so it's not a big deal to pass stuff in, but let's really just focus on the household form itself. Okay, so we've got the initial navigation down. Cool. What's next? Well, how about, and I'm just kind of talking out loud here. What if we, of course I'm talking out loud. This entire video is me talking out loud. I'm thinking out loud here. What if we did kind of page by page and break those up into their own files, right? Initial navigation and initial navigation. Cool. Just make sure that's exported correctly. All right. And then create, yeah, initial navigation. Something in Cypress is not like totally loving this. I'm just gonna break out and restart. Okay. That'll start back up and we'll get the window and we'll choose to do end-to-end testing with Chrome. So let's see. We've got a couple different pages here. And actually, let me do one thing for a second. So we've got different pages and share here. Cool. So we've got this member, so we've got this household page, we've got the member detail page and the member coverage page. The review page and the results page, not a lot going on there, but we can generalize those things in a little bit. So let's begin by kind of adding a new file and let's call it the household page. All right. And we can say export const fill in household page. Now we're probably going to want to take a parameter there or set up a parameter. But for right now, let's just copy everything in, like the whole thing, and let's see what we get. All right. Because this is one awesome way to figure out what stuff needs to be passed in, what stuff is going to break, is just let's send it over here and not rely on any kind of existing state to have been passed in, and let's see what kind of fails. So first of all, const household count 2. Holy cow, that is a hard-coded value. Sometimes when we have a number that's hard-coded, we call it a magic number. Magic number has a little different connotation, actually. It's more like a number that just needs to be that exact value to make everything work. So in that regard, it's kind of a magic number, but certainly this needs to be some sort of derived value. It's referenced down here, so I don't expect that we would need to like totally change that. But down here, we're actually wanting to type in the household member names. And so right off the bat, I feel like the array of household members needs to be passed in here. That's what my gut is telling me. So why don't we say members, household member array. So we need to pass that in. And then the household count is actually going to be the members.length, the length of the members array. And we can probably, we need household member 1 and household member 2. So this feels a little weird because we've just kind of like passed these in up here. We could certainly like, check this out. We could add an import from household member, right? We could do that, but then we rely on this information from another file rather than from the value of the members array that we get passed in. So let's not do that. Instead, let's grab, so we're going to do this right now, but I'm sure you can realize how this is not really going to suffice for maybe the entire or all of our other test cases. But check this out. Const, yes, GitHub Copilot. So let's destructure the members array and grab household member 1 and household member 2. By the way, you know what I just realized? This is hilarious. We're generalizing on the 2-member household. Let's go back to the 1-member household. That's totally my bad. And actually, let's go back to the one member change residence household, where we basically just have this. Let me actually grab this and initial household page state. So we're just gonna replace all of this. Okay. And now what we've got, by the way, you could have seen this coming. Maybe we only wanted like a single household member to be passed in, but let's see, members. Let's do members 0. Nope. Member and member dot name. Okay, that works, right? There is nothing wrong with that, and this is kind of the process of test-driven development. Is we're gonna abstract some of this stuff. We're gonna get this test to remain green, right? We want to keep it running green. Let's actually start up our Cypress tests and go to one member change in residence. We really haven't changed anything right now, so of course it's still going to pass. But now what we're going to do is we are going to scrap this entire thing, and we're going to say fill in household page with the household member 1. Okay, great. Why can't it find that? Well, just to make sure we understand, it can't find that because we never exported it from export from household page. Sweet. So now when we import this, we are now just right back to where we were. We've really just, all we've really done here, we haven't generalized anything really just yet. We have just provided a layer of indirection so that this form now continues to be filled in, and at least the household page, and doesn't really worry about what those details are of filling in the household page. All right. I'm going to sound like a broken record. We're going to say this a lot. All right. So what's next? Well, one option would be to immediately generalize this to the 2-member household scenario. All right. So why don't we do that? Cool. So if I were to do fill in household page over here, I can tell you right off the bat, we are going to miss the typing of the second member and also specifying the relationship of the spouse. So if we want to generalize this right now, that's the very first thing that we're going to have to do, is figure out how to fill the household page in, not just for one member, and not just for 2 members, but kind of an unlimited quantity of members. So here's what we'll do. We're going to put the household page over here. So this is filling in the household page. And let's do export const fill in household page with many members. And yes, that is an exceptionally long name, but what we want to do is, before we go through the effort of, before we try to like generalize this in real time, let's just kind of go side by side and see how they differ. So I'm going to grab this whole thing. I'm going to put it over here. And we can actually get rid of this. And yeah, I think that's okay for now. So first of all, we definitely need members. We need to pass an array of household members. There's no question about that. Give me 1 second. Okay, little wardrobe change. So we need to definitely pass in an array of household members. There's no question about that in my mind. And we can start to generalize this to say, just like we did before, members.length. We can grab const household member 1 and 2, and then really this works, right? For the first and second household members. All right. How will this work for 3 household members? How will this work for 15? Well, probably what we need to do, I'm noticing that, since I've used the index of these things, that there's probably a pretty easy way to loop over and fill in all the names that were given. Let's pretend, though, just for the time being, that we don't care. All right. And let's just say, we actually don't have any additional specs that have like 5 members of the household. We could just leave this as is right now. It's not ideal. It's maybe, probably bad that we do that, but we could leave it right now. And if we went back over to the 2-member household and said, hey, with our instead of there we go, fill in household page with many members, we could actually put this in and say, instead of passing all that in, we could say fill the household page with many members and pass our household members in, right? And that would totally work. Update, and we'll just go over to our specs and go to the 2-member household, and it works. It works just fine because we only had 2 members. Now, if we had a spec with 3 members and we tried to do the same thing with that and pass in, household member 1, household member 2, household member 3, well, this is immediately going to break, because then we would need to also destructure household member 2. And so clearly, that's just not the way to do it. So what can we do? Well, first of all, let's go back over to our 1-member residence change and fill in household page with many members. Now, immediately this is going to complain because household member 1 is not an array of household members. So I just need to replace it. And so just want to be clear here, go back to 1-member household and see that this still passes. So great. We've now at the very basic level generalized this to 1 and 2 household members, but we can do better. We can go to 3 household members. And so let's go over to our household page. And the first thing that I think I want to do is say, how can we loop over? So maybe we say for const index member of members.entries. Yes, totally. So the entries is going to be an iterable of this special array type where it's a tuple, and it's a key value pair of number and household, or sorry, index and household member. So the index is the index, the member is the household member. And so we're going to loop over this, and then where it says sci.get blah blah blah, what we're going to do, we'll bring this up here and we'll turn these to template strings. And right where it says 0, guess what? We'll pass the index. Yes. And where it says member, instead of hard coding member 1 name, member 2 name, we will do that. And now let's double check that this still works. So we'll come back over and we'll check out the 2-member household, and looks just fine. Looks like it's still passing. Fantastic. And this is the awesome part of having these specs all written out in a very concrete way, making sure that they pass, making sure that the specs do what we want them to do. And then when we refactor, hey, we just have to make sure that the specs remain green, and we know that we've done a good job refactoring. Cool. Hey, guess what? A side effect of that is we no longer have to do any kind of destructuring of our array, and it will just loop over each member. Now, there is something additional that we have to do. Primary members are the primary member who is filling out this form. They only have to select the relationships of the other members of their household to themselves. All right. And so I think we do get, we go over to our testing library and our household form members, we do get the relationship of each member, but we only need to fill this out for the additional members of the household. And so the way we've done that with the, I guess we can close that, close those. The way we've done this in, or the way we've kind of hard-coded this currently, where are we? Right here, is to say, hey, grab the data psi of relationship 1, or the element which corresponds to the person at the second element of the array, select the spouse and say it should have the value of spouse. All right. I don't know if there's a great way to go from the value that we should select. This is an interesting. All right, so this is actually very interesting. I don't know if I'm going to be able to solve this right here, but let me talk through what I'm looking at. So the relationship that we store is built up from this final form value. But when we go to put this in, we have to select the value, not the English word. And so I think the very first thing that we have to do, I think we talked about this in a previous video, like, oh, we could select the actual text of the option element, or we could select the value of the option element. I think for the purposes of generalizing this, we're going to have to revert or choose the other option. We went with capital S spouse, but I think we're going to have to choose the value. All right, so how do we generalize this? Well, this is going to be very similar because there will be a list of those relationships to the primary member. So I think we're going to again do for const index member of member dot entries. All right, and if this is the first member, skip to the next iteration. Yes, GitHub Copilot. Yes, that is exactly correct. So if index equals 0, continue. Continue is a keyword in JavaScript that just says whatever iteration you're in, go to the next one. So it's kind of like return, but it's special for loops. Otherwise, select the relationship between the primary and the secondary member. Yes, that's exactly it. And it is correctly identifying psi.get. It's kind of saying, hey, you did this down there. And also, I see what you did up here. Let's do the same thing. So that's exactly it. And we're going to select spouse, and it should have the value of spouse, except what we want to do is we need to generalize this. And so this needs to be not spouse, but it needs to be member dot relationship, right? Wait a minute. All relationships or no. Interesting. So TypeScript is kind of coming to the rescue here, and it's saying, wait a minute. This relationship property is either all relationships or no. But will it ever be no? This is a good question. This might be like a form control thing that we might not have set up correctly. Well, so I'll tell you this: when the form is initialized, that is initialized to the null value because we want to make sure that the dropdown says select a relationship. And so here's what I'm going to do. There's a couple different options here, but we could do if member.relationship equals null, continue. And then we know that since it's skipped over this, that the relationship will be correct. But I'm kind of okay with that. Yeah. All right. There's a couple other ways to do this, but basically we're saying, hey, you know what? The relationship is always going to have something in it. Because by the way, where does this member come from? Well, we're building it, right? We're the ones who are making this. So we can say with absolute certainty, it will have a value, even though the form control may be null initially, and that's how we had to type this. But the relationship will not be null. By the way, this household member, yeah, now I'm kind of saying to myself, this household member probably, if this represents like the form value, yes, that's true. But maybe we should remove the null to represent like the final form value. The final form value is just going to be one of the values from all relationships. It can't be null. So that's something to think about and revisit. It's probably not going to make a big deal now, but it's one of those like nice to haves for the future. Okay. So I think we're pretty good. That we can delete this because now we've generalized it, and then the very next thing to do is to click to go to the member details. This is kind of an interesting one because it implies kind of like that you're done with this page, and we want to click to go to the next page. Is that really what we want to do? Probably. That there is like maybe another way of doing this where we take this step out and we say like put it here. So it's kind of like the fill in household page with many members is just the act of filling in the form, and we leave the explicit step to move to the next page out of that abstraction. I don't know. I would love to talk to you more about it, or see in the comments. I just said that to see in the comments like what you might do in this situation. But let's just say for now, let's leave it in. Let's hide that detail and just say, you know what, household page, fill in the household page. The last thing that I think I want to do is just kind of look between these things. And sometimes what I like to do is put these like side by side, which I can do even though they're the same file. Sometimes I will put them side by side and just say, okay, here's what I've got now. And I'll kind of collapse this one up here. So we're really just comparing these two. This is the fill in household page. This is our original one where it just takes one member, and this is the one where it takes many members. I'd really like to just have one file, or I'd really like to just have one function that does this. And so what are the things that we're missing? So there's some UI logic in here. We could probably bring that over. So maybe we bring over this assertion that the button should be disabled. Oh, it's already there. Cool. So we'll get rid of this. Let's assert that the household count initially should have 1. I think we could probably bring that over. So we'll get rid of that. And I don't like it. It keeps expanding that function, whatever. And then we have a few more assertions right here. And so we'll kind of get rid of all this. And I'm just doing this to kind of like, as we go, make sure that we understand what we've brought over and what is left to bring over. So we've got these initial assertions. That's great. And then it looks like we're going to click on the household confirmation. which we've done. And then the member list should exist. So we don't have that. Although here's the thing: is if we're actually going through the members list and entering in information, if that list didn't exist, we wouldn't be able to type into it. So I'm not totally sold on that needing to be in there. We do need to leave this, and this is where we actually overwrite the existing household count with whatever this is, the household count. But I'm pretty comfortable not asserting that it starts off or that I'm okay doing it this way, like typing in that new number, even if the number also happens to be 1. So let's do this. Let's get rid of the entire previous one. Whoops, fill in household page, and let's make this a shorter exported function. So we're going to get rid of this. So now let's go over to the spec, and let's just make sure that we've got the correct function referenced. And can we redo this? Maybe not. Let's go run a different spec. There we go. Cool. So I think the file that we've mostly been changing is the one member change in residence. Let's go to the one member change in residence, just double check that everything goes all the way through. It does. Let's go to the one member household, double check that that goes all the way through. Cool. Go to the 2-member household. Okay, so something is wrong with the 2-member household. Let's check this out. Of course, it's because we need to change how this is imported, which is fine. So we'll go with that. And then I will just show you real quick that the whole thing goes through flawlessly. We could actually do this with 3, 5, 17, 42 members, and it would just take a lot longer, but would be totally fine. All right, and so that is the household page. We're going to keep plugging on this, and this is going to be a little bit of a longer video, but we're going to walk through every single other one of these pages and just make sure that each one of these is generalized so that we have fill in household page and then fill in detail page, and we're definitely, just because there is going to be a recursive nature to filling in the member 1 detail, member 1 coverage, member 2 detail, member 2 coverage. There's going to have to be some sort of loop. We're going to, start with the 1-member page and make sure that that's all set. By the way, we can clear all of this out, right, and put in fill in household page. Take that import and pass in the household members, and now that's done. Pretty cool. We should actually just not continue doing this residency spec for now and just stick with the 1-member household, because I think that's going to be most beneficial. For now, what should we do? We should probably just double checking on something. We should probably start looking at the member detail page. All right, so since we've done this now already, we're going to move at a little bit faster clip just to make sure that we can get the detail page and the coverage page both generalized. So let's create a new file. We're going to call this detail page, member detail page. And our kind of pattern is fill in household page. So we're going to say fill in export const fill in household page equals member. Ooh, should we do an array of members or should we do a single member? Let's start with the simplest way, which is just taking in any member. It's going to be a household member. And assuming that this is the primary member, because that's how we're starting off, with just a single member. We'll put this over here. We'll close this one. Again, we're going to grab everything here. We're going to copy it over and we're going to paste it in. And you can see that there's a bunch of red squigglies. And so let's start to attack each one of these at a time. So the member heading contains tell us about blah, blah, blah. So I'm going to search, I'm going to grab every reference to the household member, and I'm going to paste in the member. All right. Why is that still freaking out? Well, it's because we never imported the type. And so it can't tell that member has a property called name because it doesn't know what the TypeScript type is. All right. Next thing is we want to look. Actually, let's just go ahead and put this in. Fill in household page. And we've got that some initial state. That's totally cool. Let's replace this entire thing with fill in household page. And is it going to take an array of members? No, it's not. It's going to take household member number one. Sorry, members. Ooh, there we go. The first. Something is not right about that. So household members, the first one in the array. Fill in household page. That's because I've done this twice, right? No. Because I've called it the wrong thing. Fill in member detail page. Wow. Who was looking at that like, what are you doing? Copy paste. Fill in detail page, member detail page. Ooh. We need to export that, right? From our barrel file. Export star from member detail page. Sweet. Now we can import this, update import, and now it should just work. Let's go to the one member household spec and just double check. Yep, no problem. Enters everything in just fine. And so let's see if the next thing that we can do. So this is all good. I would say probably there's an opportunity to generalize some of this stuff. For instance, let's say this person only has one residence, right? So residence. Let's grab the very first residence from the member, and let's grab the county from the residence. So now this is the county, and let's generalize some of this stuff and say this, we're going to intercept this. Let's grab that county.zip code, right? So we just kind of generalize that a little bit. So we're kind of looking through this spec and saying anything which might be hard-coded, I'm, spoiler alert, that 0 is hard-coded, right? But we're going to leave that for now. This member residences county zip code, this can actually just be county.zip code. And this thing down here, it should have the value of, well, let's change that to a template string. This is going to be county.zip code, county.name, and county.state. So now that has been generalized a little bit, so that's cool. I think this was the county.fips, which whatever, leave it for now. It's not super cool, but it is what it is. I keep typing count instead of county. That's all right. All right, so now we've kind of generalized this a good deal. And some of you might be looking at like, this stuff and saying, hey, we could grab all of that. We could destructure the object, const, dob, equals member, yes, and then remove member and say dob. We could do const month, day, year, dob, and get rid of the dob. I think there's probably some some level of what are you trying to do, what space are you trying to save. Same thing here, like const zip code, FIPS, name, state equals county, and then you're kind of going back through and you're like deleting, deleting every like county dot. I don't know. It's like, is that really the best? Oh, look, then there's like a collision here, and now we have to do like member name. And now we have to like replace this because those destructured properties are the same. Okay, we could do that. Name could be, well, let me do county name. Yes, sweet, love VS Code. All right, so we could do that, and then maybe this allows us to be, I don't know. I really don't know what this gets us, but it's fun to destructure a bunch of properties, and maybe it makes it more readable, or maybe we're thinking about the ability to reason. Obviously readability is about the ability to reason about the code that you're reading. If it's not easy to read, or if it's not very readable, then you're struggling to understand what's happening, and what kind of stuff you're what might need to change. So okay, let's, for the sake of argument, say we're going to do that. So now we've got this all situated, but hang on, because once we come back over here, and once we get to the 2-member household, this is almost definitely going to be an array of members, or maybe not. Maybe there's another way to do this, where we only pass in a single member at a time. Hey, that might be kind of cool. Like pass in the member and the index. Ooh. And then we're specifically passing in just a member at a time. That's kind of interesting, and we might think about doing it that way, versus like just passing in an array. We really want the member detail page to be filled out with a method that takes in a single member. So we're gonna have to think about maybe down the road, like how to generalize this to maybe loop over and do member page, member detail page, member coverage page for every single list of members that it's got. We'll figure that out together. For now, let's keep going with the coverage page. So let's come down here, and we'll do member coverage page. And before we do anything else, let's export star from member coverage page. So that'll just make sure that when we go to use this, it'll be available. The member coverage page is pretty simple, especially when you consider that we're not clicking anything. We're not actually entering in any coverage. So we'll say export const fill in member coverage page, and that will take a member, which will be a household member. And we are going to do the following. We are going to copy and paste this stuff in. Instead of household member 1, it's just member. And oh my goodness, that was it. So there's really nothing there, but I can guarantee you there will be more once we start to add in our specs for like what coverage options are selected. And so here we can say fill in member coverage page with household members 0. Awesome. Again, This is just one step along the way. We are obviously hard coding these to just the first member of the array because there's only one, but we want to generalize these to accept or to handle the scenario where there are multiple members to the household. So that's cool. Review page, maybe continue results. Nah, maybe we just leave that as is for now. And then the results page, this is probably something that we could generalize, but for now, let's leave it alone because I think that we're probably good with that. Okay, so ooh, we're so close. We're so close. Let's look at the two-member household. And you know what? Just for the sake of like not getting too confusing, because we're just generalizing between one and two member households. Let's not worry about the residence right now. We're just going to scrap that spec. All right, we kind of started it, but you know, don't fall into the sunk cost fallacy. If you spend a lot of time on something, or even a little bit of time, don't be afraid to just throw it away. I promise you won't regret it. Just move on. All right, so now we've got the two-member household, and let's put these things side by side. So we've got the one-member household. We've got the two-member household. We've already generalized the fill-in household page to work well. We need to be able to fill in the member detail page and the coverage page for multiple members. So I think I mentioned a few minutes ago that it's not necessarily bad, or it's not a bad idea to start thinking about, well, let's make the fill-in member detail page accept an array of members, except when you realize that these things have to go back and forth between member detail page and coverage page, and then back to member detail page and coverage page. So it might make more sense to have kind of a higher level function, a higher order function that takes the array of household members and then itself does the fill in the member detail page, fill in the member coverage page, fill in the member detail page, fill in the coverage page. So just for the sake of seeing this just kind of more explicitly put in, and I want to go over to the two-member household. So just kind of double check that we're still good here. Everything checks out. Yep, still good. Let's just do the very simplest thing, which is literally take these and put them in for the member one and member two. So this is going to look kind of fun, and it's going to look like we're saving a lot of steps, and then fill in coverage page, and we're going to do this. So let's just double check that we're good. Gets all the way through the form, no issues, that's fine. Here's probably the next spot where it's not really going to work. So if we were to take the fill-in member detail page for the second one, and I'm just going to comment that out for a second because I don't want it to run. And instead, we were able to pass in the second member in the household. Check it out. It's going to break right here because the way we have built the member detail page is to expect that there would be a place to fill out a residence. Okay, and so because that is because that can't happen on secondary members, and you can see right here, psi.gets zip code input should not exist because secondary members are not required to enter residence information. Something about our fill-in member detail page needs to know that they are not a secondary member, or that they are a secondary member. There are a couple different ways to derive this information or to attain this information. I would say the easiest one, without requiring anything of like passing indexes or anything like that, is to simply say, are they a primary member, right? We have a Boolean value on every single household member that says whether they are the primary member. And so, hey, let's use that. We can do primary member, so we can destructure that property off of the member object. And then what we can say is, let's do a little control flow logic. Secondary members are not required to enter in. Yep, let me grab that thing. So if primary member, then we will put in this zip code stuff, right? And all of the months, we also need to select all of the months. Else, let's make sure that the zip code input does not exist. Okay, so if they're a primary member, they, and we can scrap all of this stuff. If they're a primary member, they don't have to enter a zip code, or they do have to enter a zip code. Therefore, it should exist, and we should type in the zip code and put all that stuff in. Otherwise, just assert that that doesn't even exist. And all of a sudden, we're done with abstracting the fill in the member detail page. The fill in the member coverage page is exactly the same for both members. All right. And so I hope you can see that we've got the member one detail page, the member one coverage page, the member one detail page, and the member two coverage page is just going to be exactly the same, except we're going to pass number one in instead of number two. And that spec went through, take my word for it. And now you can see, oh, actually, you know what? We could really now generalize these by just saying for const member of household members, household members. And remember, we don't really care about the index. The index doesn't matter anymore. We are going to fill in member detail page with the member. Oops, sorry. And then fill in the member coverage page with the member. And I think what we're going to do is we're going to get rid of some of these comments because they kind of don't really matter anymore. And I think you might agree or you might disagree. That's okay. That the readability of this test is, it's pretty obvious. It should fill out the form for two persons with no change in residence. We're going to fill in the household page with the household members. And then for each member of the household members array, we're going to fill in the member detail page and then fill in the coverage page. And all of those details, all of those implementation details are now abstracted away. We don't really care, or the test doesn't really care. We're indirecting, we're providing this layer of indirection where we still need to do this thing, but the details of this are somewhere else. And so we can kind of come back in here to the one member household page, and we can actually do the same thing, because as long as it is an array, it's just going to give us, or it's going to loop through each member in the array. Well, guess what? There's only one member of the array, and it'll just do that one and then move on with its life. And so that is it. Again, I think that it's probably okay to leave these as is. We could certainly spend time and say, how could we generalize these? There's probably a good way. In fact, they're probably just exactly the same. Make sure that, when you hit the review page, that we're making some sort of we're making sure that this is intercepted. In fact, this intercept could probably just live at the top of of the page. And honestly, like, I don't even think we care about providing a fixture. We just want to intercept it. We don't even care what the results are that come back, because that logic exists outside of this application. So we might just delete that. We really just want to wait to see that that request goes through and that it comes back, and that it's sent with this form value. Now, this form value is something that we're going to have to tackle eventually, but otherwise, that's it. Like, yeah. Why don't we just get rid of all of these comments? Actually, the review page is fine. And we are done. We have generalized these now, and I hope you can see that we've gone from all of these like really explicit Cypress commands to just a really readable way of saying, fill in the household page, and then for each member, fill in the detail page, fill in the coverage page. And now when we go to create a new spec, something that requires maybe a little bit different input, none of this is really going to change, right? I'm gonna copy and paste these probably for every single other spec that I do. And you know what? I might even just generalize these one more, and I might do something like fill in household form, right? Why not? If these are going to be exactly the same, maybe we should just do that. Should we just do that? Fill in household form with the household members? Why not? Let's just do it. New file, household. I'm probably going to regret this. Export const, fill in household form, and it's going to take the household members. Actually, wait a minute. Is that okay? Is that all we care about? Let's just double check here for a second before we go full bore on this. So is the household form itself, or is the array of household members the only thing that we care about? The thing that I'm wondering is, see, there's this final, there's this final form that we create, and it creates the tax year and the state. I'm just wondering if we need to generalize this at a higher level to make sure that we include some of this stuff. But honestly, let's just pretend we don't. And that the household members are the real, are the thing that really changes between specs. And so let's proceed. Let's proceed. And what is this going to look like? Well, this is going to look like this. And we obviously need to import those from the sibling files. And we also need to export this, export star from household form. Not correct, GitHub Copilot. Close, but not correct. And now, woo, check this out. We are going to replace all of these things with fill in household form with the household members. We're going to import this, and we are going to copy and paste this over here, put this over here, and just add a little space to make sure that that doesn't look weird, and get rid of that comment. And now we can actually get rid of these additional imports because we actually don't need them. We've once again provided another layer of indirection. And now the only thing that this test cares about is, or that it needs to know about, is a simple function that says fill in the form. That's all you got to know about, fill in the form. And after you fill in the form, check the review page, check the results page, that this final form value is as it is supposed to be. And so that is the whole thing. We're going to come over here and format. And looks like there were a handful of things that it didn't love about my formatting. That's okay. That's why we let tools do these jobs and format files and lint and all sorts of other stuff. And that is it. So that's the whole video. I know this was a longer one. Thank you for bearing with me, but I hope, I hope our end result is, kind of makes sense. I'll just zoom out a little bit. I hope it makes sense that we have gone from, quite a large file with all of these individually described Cypress steps. And of course, if we needed to change anything, we're doing it in multiple places. If we need to, add a third spec now, we'd have to reduplicate all of that stuff. And we'd have to understand the subtle differences between a one-member and a multi-member household. Now, all this spec cares about is fill in the household form. And as long as you can pass it any kind of array of household members, it'll just work. So that is the whole video. Thank you very much. I will see you in the next one.